the ladder, picks the puck up, puts it down to his stick, decides, I'm going to make an incredible read here to figure out where to put the puck to have the best chance to score, and then uses his high-end skill to cross-ice pass to Marchessault for bam, an open net. That all happens in the span of 3 seconds, and it tells you how elite Jack Eichel is. And yeah, I know that Jack Eichel is one of the favorites for the Conn Smythe right now, and honestly, in his very first playoff appearance, he's really close to kissing the Stanley Cup here. But let's refresh ourselves of the narratives surrounding this guy for the past, 8, 9 plus years? Remember the Jack Eichel curse about how if you put him on your team, you won't make the playoffs, and he crumbles in the big games, and you can't win with him, and he's a diva in the Buffalo dressing room, he's not a good leader. This is all stuff that was said about Jack Eichel throughout, especially his time in Buffalo, but even when he got to Vegas, and he had
I think I was still live. And when he was on at Buffalo, I got the guys that used to be in Vegas.
A lot of people's standards underwhelming, and I put that in air quotes because he still had pretty decent seasons, but by what a lot of people were expecting of him to go put out, I don't know, Draisaitl numbers or McKinnon numbers, he didn't do that, but he was still a very effective player. And given that in the last 2 seasons with Vegas, he didn't show the Hart Trophy finalist, clear as day #1 center Jack Eichel, I think it's fair to say that quite a few people were expecting a Jack Eichel Casper the Friendly Ghost performance in these playoffs. But instead, the dude's been absolutely unreal. Now with 16 points in 13 playoff games, and honestly, Vegas' best player other than like Adin Hill. And the one that really knocked my socks off was, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the McDavid versus Eichel first overall versus second overall comparisons in that series. I thought that would have gotten to him. I thought the pressure of everybody saying, look, McDavid's just in a different caliber than you, man. Like, he's just a level above you, Jack. I'm sorry, and you're going to have to match up against him. Just try to hold your own. No, he grabbed the rock and ran with it. He was like, no, I'm not having any of this. I want to dominate this series. He was on fire that series, and honestly, the whole playoffs. And look, there's no debating that obviously anybody, a blind dog would take Connor McDavid over Jack Eichel in the 2015 draft. But man, did Jack show some dog in him and say, hey, I'm more of a winner than people give me credit for. And to be completely honest with you, if Vegas gets a Jack Eichel that knows he can dominate in the playoffs and can overcome all of these narratives of, oh, he's not a winner, he's going to disappear in the playoffs, man, that's going to be scary and that's going to be dangerous. Not just for this playoff run, but playoff runs in years to come. A #1 cornerstone guy who can really turn it on in the playoffs? Come on. And be honest with yourself. How many people actually thought that Jack Eichel was going to be able to be that? I mean, honestly, I'll be the first to admit that when I was watching him in Buffalo, I loved the kid, but I really thought he was the type to be like, oh, I'm going to put up my 75 to 90 points in the regular season. Oh, would you look at the time? It's playoffs. See ya. I'm going to go home now. That's why this is terrifying if you're any other team in the Pacific Division, or honestly in the league, if you get a Jack Eichel who gains confidence from this. Imagine if Jack Eichel wins a Conn Smythe and a Stanley Cup here. I mean, the dude's going to be unstoppable.
Unstoppable to not miss. Yeah, so I won't pull right now. By the way, so I'm guessing that Vegas is gonna be Vegas and Florida. I think Florida's gonna win this Stanley Cup. The only reason I chose Vegas is against Dallas, why I chose Vegas to win it, because I thought Vegas is one strong team, like they're a brick. Excuse me. Dallas isn't. Dallas is like 3 ants. Like 3 people are good on that team. 3 people can carry the team. But yeah, no.
Seriously. And the same thing goes for Matthew Tkachuk. Like, you give that guy a Stanley Cup and just watch the monster run wild. And the same thing would happen with Jack Eichel here, where he's like, hey, all the people in the media are wrong here. I can be an absolute beast in the playoffs. And honestly, that's one of the biggest keys to success in this wacky, unpredictable tournament that we call the NHL playoffs. So if they have that in Vegas,
why do we call them the NHL
Vegas,
playoffs?
It's going to be...
That they make no sense.
Magic Clean Multi-Surface Liquid Cleaner. Enjoy the long-lasting freshness long after the clean.
This video is probably gonna be like split into like a couple of pieces.
So as we all know by now, Kyle Dubas, Brendan Shanahan, and
Next
Tom
man up,
Brady had
stepped
a
up,
massive
Johnny
public fallout
Hockey
last week.
did.
Shanahan aired out the negotiation dirty laundry publicly in a press conference. Kyle Dubas sent out a passive-aggressive response where he said, oh, yeah, I want to keep all these details private. Shanahan said, yeah, we want a more experienced general manager this time. And Dubas definitely has to go back on his statement where he said it's either GM in Toronto or nowhere, because clearly it's going to be somewhere. And even on the 32 Thoughts podcast on Monday, Elliot Friedman got word from people around everything happening in Toronto, this big soap opera, that it's like Game of Thrones in there, apparently. So it's messy, the breakup between Dubas and the Leafs. And everybody seems to be linking Kyle Dubas to the Pittsburgh Penguins, which makes sense because they're open for a GM, and it's even reported that Kyle Dubas met with Sidney Crosby at the Penguins practice facility. So he's in and around it, and it's very possible that he becomes the next GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins, especially after the debacle they just had with Ron Hextall. Going with a younger, more progressive mind might be exactly what the doctor ordered for them. But Frank Saravalli came out and mentioned that, yeah, that is a point of interest, Dubas and the Penguins, but also a team to watch here is the Ottawa Senators. And if you're like me, you fell back in your chair for two reasons. Number one, Dubas was a Leaf fan. No, I mean, look at all the passion and everything he gave his whole being into the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he grew up in Ontario. He must have grown up a Leaf fan like 90% of Ontario did, right? Well, here's the thing about that. Apparently, he grew up in Sault Ste. Marie and was a Senators fan growing up. There's even been a few times on his page where he's liked some stuff regarding Alfredson and the Hall of Fame and the Sens around the time where he would have grown up. So maybe, secretly, he still cheers for the Ottawa Senators a little bit. Next up, there's obviously a huge elephant in the room here.
Don't bring that elephant in the room quite yet. Wait, well, I forget what.
Dorian must be looking at this saying, huh? What? I'm still the GM of the Ottawa Senators. What do you mean? Frank Saravalli.
Oh, yeah. The reason I don't think he's going for Iowa and going for Toronto is because there's a whole big bid in Iowa right now for the team.
That's the one that really took it aback for me. Where I was like, yeah, what? I mean, Pierre Dorian is still there. Apparently, they might be on thinner ice than I thought. And I mean, I guess it makes sense. Pierre Dorian's come out a few times, said the rebuild is over, and this is a playoff team, and they haven't made the playoffs, so maybe he is on thinner ice than some of us suspected. But think of the absolute troll job this would be from Kyle Dubas. The absolute just, screw you to the Toronto Maple Leafs if he just decides, hey, yeah, I'm going to go GM for probably your second biggest rival behind the Montreal Canadiens, the Battle of Ontario. I'm going to the other side now, and I'm taking all of my GM knowledge there in the division. Like, can you think of another situation where a really talented young GM had a really public fallout with an extremely popular team and then bounced over to a division rival? I can't think of one. And if you would ask me 2 weeks ago if I thought this would happen, I would have said, no way. Look at the loyalty that Kyle Dubas has to the Maple Leafs. He clearly loves that franchise, is grateful and appreciative for everything they've done for him, and that may still be the case. But after this fallout and this whole thing with Shanahan, hey, anything's on the table here now. I mean, he might do it out of spite going to the Ottawa Senators. Obviously not only for that, but, I mean, I think it's definitely a possibility now. That being said, I still do think
the beginning of the season, now, with, like, news.
It's going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins for Kyle Dubas. I think that's just a really good natural fit. But when Frank Seravalli said this, my eyebrow got raised because this could be a massive troll against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, it would be, I don't want to say heartbreaking, but it'd be like, wow, really, Kyle? You're going to go there, huh? So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. Leaf fans and NHL fans in general, let me know what you would think about Kyle Dubas becoming GM of the Ottawa Senators. I want to know. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
Oh, he did two as well.
Take a tour of a place from the comfort of your phone.
I'm not going to be able to do both.
No flip, no cap, no mess. Just grab and squeeze. Try Dawn Easy Squeeze.
Probably only this one, maybe.
This is one of the worst 6-on-5 man advantages I think I've ever seen to end a game. Carolina pulls Freddie Anderson with just over 3 minutes left, but it wouldn't help at all. Their best possession was probably right at the beginning of the 6-on-5, but they were honestly hot garbage trying to break out of their zone. And if not for a weird non-call whistle blow on a high stick, they would have been Panther feed before the clock expired. The empty netter was a weird one. It was called back, but there wasn't actually a penalty on this high sticking play. Gostisbehere gets it in the visor. He goes down pretty dramatically. However, the play isn't whistled down because of a penalty. It was whistled because the ref was worried about injury. I think in hindsight, you probably throw a high sticking and a diving minor on this play. To me, however, the missed call isn't as bad as some others just because it was sold so much. Anyway, the empty netter wouldn't count, and the Panthers would basically ice the game with a minute 15 left on the clock. Not by scoring this time, though, but by getting the puck out of their D zone and just hounding the Hurricanes on the puck in their own zone. Aho takes it, he attempts to leave the zone, gets hit along the boards. The Canes recover just to give the puck to Natchez, who blows a tire at the blue line, giving it back to the Panthers. Cousins misses, but the Panthers just start working Carolina, pestering offense like a pack of hungry wild mosquitoes. They just wouldn't let up. They kept the Cane in their own end for a whole minute, and when they finally got out, all they could do was dump the puck and not get a shot on net and lose the game. Just an awful 6-on-3, and now Rod the Bot and the Canes are in Leafs territory, down 3-0 in the series, with the next and potentially final game in Florida. I'm probably starting to sound like a broken record at this point, but what another amazing game from Bobrovsky, who steals another.
So I was thinking of like young YouTubers, how they do like so much success, like Emmett obviously, and I was thinking of Ryan from Ryan 2 Series. This just came out of nowhere, you're probably thinking, but he's like a year older than me. Isn't he like 11?
In his first career playoff shutout, which is somewhat insane considering how well he's been playing. Anyway, Carolina did their best throughout the game trying to break through Bob, but he just kept answering the bell with save after save. Right now, he's got to be in the front runner for playoffs MVP. Also, speaking of Bob, have you seen that picture going around of him after the Leafs game? Apparently he loses on average 15 pounds per game in water weight, and after Leafs game 5, he shed 20. That's insane. I just imagine how much he has to eat and drink, especially during off days, to have enough gas to keep going, especially when you've got these crazy 4 overtime games. Hockey players are certainly unique breeds. But are you getting your brooms out for the series? And is Officer Bob the early favorite for the Conn Smythe? What about the other guy on his team who's having a bit of a playoffs? Matthew Tkachuk. Let us know down below. Oh, also, I haven't been dodging the Western Conference Finals intentionally. It's just the way the schedule goes.
And I'll see you in the next video.